Okay, so here in the United States, we use the English system of units. Back in England, they use the metric system, but at least we don't have to convert our pound cakes into kilos before we eat them. But I would claim that the primary reason across Europe that they're able to take 5 weeks of vacation per year doesn't have much to do with weights, but it has a lot to do with area. So, quick, how many acres are there in a square mile? Okay, I know you don't know the answer, so let me just tell you that it's 640 acres. Now, the number 640 is not a perfect square, but you can take this square mile, also known as a section, split it into 4 equal pieces. So each quarter of a section then is known as a quarter section. Has 160 acres. Now you can split this 160 acres into 4 equal pieces as well, each of which then would be 40 acres, a quarter of a mile by a quarter of a mile. One has to believe that 40 acres is more than adequate enough amount of space to turn this or any other rig around. In fact, if you're unable to do so, I don't think you have any business at all driving a truck for a living. Now, the original Homestead Act, actually, back in 1862, it provided anybody who had a Y chromosome and was at least 21, whether they were born in the U.S. or fresh off the boat from Germany, whether they were lifelong farmers or had lived in the London slums their whole lives, gave them 40 acres of land, and in accordance with best practice capitalism, it was free. Now, as the frontier pushed to the farthest western part of the Great Plains, it was quite apparent out there that 40 acres meant you'd starve to death almost immediately. So the second Homestead Act in 1909 upped the acreage to a full quarter section, 160 acres, and that way homesteaders would be able to starve to death at a much more leisurely pace. Anyway, back to our numbers. If you split a 40-acre plot 4 ways again into 10-acre plots, you'll see each of them is 1/8 of a mile by 1/8 of a mile square. Now, 1/8 of a mile is also known as a furlong, and if you have to know, and you do have to know, the speed of light is 1.8 trillion furlongs per fortnight. Now, you can't do much more with these 10-acre plots than to just cut them into 10 1-acre strips that are 1/8 of a mile by 1/80th of a mile. And when you do that, you'll find that 1/80th of a mile is known as a chain. So that means that each of our 1-acre plots is 1 chain by 10 chains, or 10 square chains. But I was really getting into the whole dividing by 4 thing there for a while, so let's split the chain into 4 equal pieces. Each of these is known as a rod. Making chains out of rods seems pretty strange to me, but nobody asked me before they did it. Our acre then, 10 square chains, turns out to be 10 times 4 times 4, 160 square rods. Let's put this all together now, starting at the basics. All right? So first of all, as everyone knows, a yard is equal to 3 feet. Secondly, as 2 or 3 people in the whole universe know, a rod is equal to 5.5 yards, or 16.5 feet. Next, the chain, 4 rods, thus must be 22 yards, or 66 feet. Moving next to the furlong, see that was our 10 chains, or 40 rods, and that turns out to be 220 yards, or 660 feet. Finally, in terms of our length, a mile is 8 furlongs, which is 80 chains, or 320 rods, and that comes to 1,760 yards, which is 5,280 feet. So moving back to our area measurements, what we see is that an acre was equal to 10 square chains, or 160 square rods, and that comes out to be 43,560 square feet. And our section, square mile, we said was 640 acres, which is 6,400 square chains, or 102,400 square rods, or 27,878,400 square feet. Okay. Now, a lot of Americans say that they find the metric system to be, quite frankly, a bit confusing. And that's understandable given the inherent difficulties associated with multiplying by the number 10. There's probably some sort of app out there for your smartphone if you need to. But let's see how the Europeans managed to muddle through. Now, for example, in Europe, you might read somewhere that a World Cup soccer pitch is about 2/3 of a hectare. Well, what is a hectare? Well, the hectare is the basic unit of area for land in the metric system. And it's simply 100 meters by 100 meters, or 10,000 square meters. And now you see why Europeans have enough time to be able to take 5-week vacations.